Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. I just got back from the gym for my max effort bench press session today and was reading through the questions I had in my comments yesterday, and someone asked a question about my points about reducing volume and training for strength a bit more when you're on a cut, and it was in my Q&As from yesterday. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Alright, I've done a video kind of explaining how to maintain strength on a cut and how to change your training on a cut. Actually, I've done two different videos on that. I'm going to link both of them here, and I'm going to link them down below for you guys. And some points I addressed there were that the majority of people, and I'm going to say 70 to 80% of people genetically do better on a cut, and most experts I know feel the same way, because they do not tolerate high workloads of training very well when they're on a cut versus when they're on a bulk. And since you're not going to gain muscle, you don't worry about it. You use your caloric deficit to cut you up, not your training. I, however, mentioned that people who have just great genetics for it and tolerate volume very well, which are a minority genetically, along with chemically enhanced people, can get away with increasing volume and using their weightlifting to actually cut them up by burning calories and increasing metabolic rate and the afterburn and everything else. But what you guys have to keep in mind is that you have to seriously assess that for yourself. And the person in these comments said, well, how come I see other YouTube channels? I see guys like Chris Jones and other people who do this and it works really well for them. And I would point out to you guys, there's a couple things to keep in mind. When you are looking at other people, you have to stop and ask, is this person a genetic freak or are they using drugs? When you look at these methods, and you know when a lot of experts are telling you that the majority of people, it doesn't work very well that way, but you see these exceptions, well, obviously they are either very genetically gifted and or they are on drugs. Now, someone pointed out Chris Jones, and I do want to point out for you guys that I do know Chris Jones and I do chat with him back and forth a lot, and I know a lot of guys who use drugs who don't look as good as Chris does. But my personal opinion on it is I think Chris actually is legit natty. I've had enough private conversations with Chris that my gut instinct is that he is just genetically gifted. He's in that top 5% genetically. But that being said, he still falls into that genetically gifted group who handle that volume. So keep that in mind when you're assessing this. Chris Jones, because of his genetics, is going to be able to do things and make them work perfectly for him that you are simply not going to be able to do. You don't have his workload tolerance, you don't have his capacity for hypertrophy, you don't have his muscle insertions. He is a very, very genetically gifted bodybuilder. It just is what it is, and you've got to be a realist about that stuff. And then on top of that, and I wanted to address that point with him first before I jump into this, because I do not want people to think that I'm accusing Chris of drugs, because I am not. But that being said, when people run around saying, I'm natural, the motherfuckers who scream that the most, in my experience, are usually the ones using the biggest doses. And just because someone has competed in a natural show or a tested event doesn't mean shit. So when you are taking that advice and they're doing something that you know, according to the data, doesn't work for most people, don't just assume that they're natural because they claim they are, because they passed 2 drug tests in their whole life. I mean, Lance Armstrong passed dozens of harder drug tests than they do at any natural bodybuilding show. It doesn't mean they're natural. Anybody can pass a drug test. Anybody can claim they're natural. So put that in perspective with some of the anecdotal advice for people, and consider that people have different genetics and you have to assess where you are. Now, and that's not to say that you aren't in that category that can get away with that. Experiment with it and see. I don't tell people that just because something is going to work statistically for 70% of people, that you're in that 70%. There's a 30% chance you're not. That's pretty good odds. So if you want to experiment with something and find out, go try it and see how it works out. Because at the end of the day, you do have to find what works for you personally, and it may turn out that you are in that 30% of people who it works well for. And if that's the case, and you go watch what Chris Jones does and you replicate it, it's going to work really, really well. So find what works for you. Alright guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it has been informative, and I will talk to you next time.